Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube audiobook series for The Forbidden Truth, written by Abby Matthias. I am Darius Stone, and today I will be introducing Chapter 31. If you missed Chapter 30, I would highly suggest going back and reading the last chapter. Otherwise, you're going to miss a whole bunch in this chapter. But if you are all caught up and ready to go, we will continue on with Chapter 31, Burn in Hell.
Darius! I screamed at the top of my lungs. I was still hovering in the air when I watched him being flung down to the ground. A loud rumble erupted like an earthquake when he landed, while nothing but dust filled the air. However, eventually I began to see my demon laying on his back passed out. At the realization, I quickly flew back down to the ground to kneel by his side, still injured with the nail punctures within my arms. Darius, you need to wake up! I urged, shaking his body. He didn't respond. No sign of movement showed itself besides the rising and falling of his chest. Darius, please! You can't do this! Get up! Once again, there was no response. I heard another loud thud from behind me. Turning to it, I saw Satan with a wicked smile while he breathed violently. He too was injured like I was. I could visually see the burns upon his skin while he was slightly slouched. Then when he slowly began to walk towards us, I could see the limp he gained as his left ankle was in pain. Yet that didn't stop him from speaking to me.
Move aside, Abby. Don't make this harder than what it has to be.
At his reply, I gripped onto Darius's body, holding it for dear life. No! I cried. If you want him, you have to... And before I could finish my sentence, the devil lifted his hand up to me and slightly squeezed it. From there, my airway was suddenly blocked and I couldn't breathe. Trying desperately to gasp for air, I tried to grab at the phantom hands that clamped around my throat. Yet that was where I made my mistake. Once I was caught off guard and choking, Satan lifted me off the ground and walked in front of my face, still showing the smile on his.
It's over, Miss Davis, and soon you will become Queen Kernon, my main mistress of hell, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Upon his statement, he forcefully threw me back to separate Darius from me. As I broke through the air, I was expecting to hit the arena wall. Yet as I braced for impact, I instead collided with Damien as he was somehow able to catch me. Looking up at him, I seen the anger and concern in his eyes from everything that was happening. Despite that, the arena was sounding with evil laughter again, drawing all of our attentions to the direction it came from. That's when I saw the worst thing I could ever see. Satan picked up Darius by the ankle using his abilities. He was levitated into the air as his entire body hung almost lifelessly. I immediately squirmed out of Damien's arms to try and rush towards them, but Damien kept a hold of my arm and refused for me to get involved. Before I could question his action, Satan spoke again to Darius.
Who knew you would be so valuable to me?
After that, he locked hands with Darius, and he started to illuminate with a dark blue glow. The same thing happened to my demon as the recognizable red glow surrounded him. Then within a millisecond, the protector demon was fused into the devil, and we helplessly had to watch. They grew in size by a substantial amount. I couldn't give an estimation as I wasn't good with measurements. Regardless, the skin turned bright orange, while the hair lengthened to about shoulder length. The muscles grew upon the body, more than what Darius even had with his muscular growth activated. It was concerning as I could see the bulging veins extruding out upon their arms. Hell, even the shackles that were initially around their wrists broke off because of how much they grew. My demon's wings still looked the same. However, they too grew in size to match the stature of the vessel. 3 pairs of arms made themselves known and extended out along their sides. Finally, after everything was finished, their eyelids opened to reveal piercing red eyes with blue swirls within them. The sight as a whole was an abomination. Evil was written broadly and plain on the figure before us, and I could hear Nala starting to cry from behind me.
My husband, he's gone,
she murmured breathlessly and heartbroken. Turning around, she was now hugging Damien by his arm while he crouched down to meet her.
Mom,
Damien said softly.
I'm sorry I couldn't do anything. I'm so sorry.
With that moment, my mind began to crash, while my chest filled with sorrow and anger. Looking back at the entity, they ignited into flames, displaying their power in new form. They were fireproof and had lots of power in their hands, way more than what I had. But this was something that had to be stopped, not just for Darius and his family, but for all the universe. Even Earth was in danger with this form existent. So without hesitation or fear, I mustered my electricity again to create another lightning bolt within my hand. Then once it was fully formed, I threw it right at the large enemy that held my demon captive. As it struck the figure, they didn't squirm or even flinch. Yet they still felt the electric pulse run through their body. It made their head gaze at me again as I began to walk up towards them.
Abby, don't do this! You're going to get hurt!
My boyfriend cried. I already am, both physically and emotionally. Darius is still alive, and he needs a protector to save him. Disregarding his concern, I was now going to put my life on the line to undo this catastrophe. As I continued to walk, the entity tried to shoot a fireball at me. Yet I quickly lifted up my left arm to bring up the protective barrier. It shielded me from the blow, but I had to use every ounce of will to keep it up. As I was safe, I took the shield down again and walked forward. The head of my enemy then turned to the ground and smiled as it gained sight of the chains. Instantly, it lifted off the ground and into its hand. Using it as a whip, he swung it in my direction. Once again, I activated my intangibility to make the chain go right through me. I wasn't fazed by the action. Eventually, my body stood only a few yards away from the newly formed Satan. Let Darius go! Now! I demanded.
And why would I do that? It's not my fault that he was the one I needed. Plus, he's better this way. I can have more control over him and he will be forced to adapt to his new purpose. It's over. I won.
A deeper, echoey voice said, replying back to me. The vocals were a mixture of both men, signaling two people were existent within that form. The devil's voice was more prominent than my protector demon's was, meaning Darius was still alive, and all he needed to do was wake up. Yet I didn't know what else had to happen in order to get him out of this situation. But yet I had a feeling this wasn't going to work out in his favor because of something Satan lacked. So as of now, I just needed to buy Darius time to rise from his unconsciousness. I'm not gonna ask you again! Let him go!
You seriously think shouting is gonna change a thing? How pathetic.
No, I don't think that. You are a monster and always will be. You have done nothing but tormented so many people, including the humans on Earth. I am shouting to display your last warning before I beat your ass.
Oh, you're threatening me. How cute. But I'll be beating that thick ass of yours before you can beat mine. Nice try, sweetheart.
I will never be yours. I will fight for my life and everything else before I surrender to your will. Then, I decided to electrify myself in case he tried to touch me. At least it gave him a warning and showed I was serious about my statement. You don't scare me, and I will not give up. Stop this now before you get yourself killed. At that, Satan then laughed hysterically, considering my response as a joke. Despite that, he eventually spoke up to me again.
You're messing with the wrong being, kid. You can't kill me. I'm immortal now. I'm also extremely powerful now to the point that I can kill you with just one punch, which would fulfill my goal and make you my betrothed. So let's finish you off and make this happen.
Then the figure started to swing his arm back as the hand formed a fist. It began to swing towards me as I braced for impact. However, as the fist got only inches away from me, it stopped, failing to land the blow. Looking up, Satan grew confused and rewound his arm again to throw another punch. The same thing happened. Then he tried with the other arm, and the same result came about.
What the fuck?
Satan yelled. He then managed to light his hands on fire and form another fireball. Regardless of that, he tried to let go of it to make it fly towards me, and missed. The body twisted to the right and burned the concrete of the arena. Satan was fed up with his uncontrollable malfunctions. He vocalized another time as he attempted to backhand me. Of course it didn't work, and I began to smile wickedly back at the devil.
What the hell is happening? Why can't I destroy you?
Because you don't understand what it means to be fused with another being. You are currently fused with a demon who cares about who you are trying to hurt. Not to mention the fact that he has 14 human years of built-up anger towards you. And he has the same amount of power as the leader of hell. Right at that moment, for the first time, Satan grew worried as his mouth slightly opened. Karma is a bitch, I said. At my reply, I watched his face shift into an intimidating look with a full grin showing.
And so am I.
And Darius uppercutted his own form right under the jaw, making Satan stumble and confused as to what to do.
As I began to gain consciousness again, I woke up to find myself within some sort of black void. A space of blackness to where I couldn't see anything around me, or where I even was. Nothing gave me a clue as to where my location was, and I grew confused as to what was happening. That was until I heard a loud booming voice echoing around me.
Let Darius go! Now!
And why would I do that? It's not my fault that he was the one I needed. Plus, he's better this way. I can have more control over him and he will be forced to adapt to his new purpose. It's over. I won.
It was Abby confronting Satan. He managed to fuse with me while I was knocked out. I wasn't given the choice. Now I was stuck in the dark somewhere within a new form. My family and protector child were out in the open, unable to fight against whatever I was forced to become. Yet Abby was trying to put up a fight to save me. However, I knew well who was in more danger within this situation, and I needed to find a way back out fast.
I'm not gonna ask you again. Let him go.
You seriously think shouting is gonna change a thing? How pathetic.
No, I don't think that. You are a monster and always will be. You have done nothing but tormented so many people, including the humans on Earth. I am shouting to display your last warning before I beat your ass.
Abby, don't do that! I screamed, trying to get through. Yet all I heard was the sound of my own echoey voice. Before I could figure out what to do, I was suddenly exposed to a bright light. My vision blurred for a moment, but then I was able to see the entire picture. She was standing only a few feet away from me, looking furious as ever. I towered over her while I felt anger within my chest. More anger than usual. Along with that, I could hear all the horrible thoughts that belonged to the bastard I was fused with. I tried staying calm as to not allow him to know I was aware of everything. So I stayed quiet and listened to more of his conversation with my protector child.
Oh, you're threatening me. How cute. But I'll be beating that thick ass of yours before you can beat mine. Nice try, sweetheart.
I will never be yours. I will fight for my life and everything else before I surrender to your will.
After her proclamation, she engaged her lightning power and was surrounded with electricity. Glowing blue bolts struck her body as her eyes glowed faintly with blue and green. Her fist also raised in a fit of anger. Almost like she was putting herself into a fighting position. Despite that, she was showing her confidence and her lack of fear regarding the figure standing before her.
You don't scare me, and I will not give up. Stop this now before you get yourself killed.
Satan then laughed hysterically at her response, but after his laughter, he eventually spoke.
You're messing with the wrong being, kid. You can't kill me. I'm immortal now. I'm also extremely powerful now to the point that I can kill you with just one punch, which would fulfill my goal and make you my betrothed. So let's finish you off and make this happen.
At that moment, Satan swung his arm back as he was about to punch her, to try and kill her.
No!
I exclaimed with anger. It still wasn't said out loud for some reason. Despite that, the fist refrained in midair and didn't touch Abby. I felt a confusing feeling swirling in my head as the fist wound up again. But once more, the punch failed to strike the opponent. Then he tried the other arm, thinking that would solve his malfunctioning problem. However, the result stayed the same. At that, I saw my human beginning to relax a bit. She still kept her guard up to ensure she didn't miss a beat, but I had a feeling she knew what was going on. Or at least was starting to think of possible reasons as to what was happening. Though for the devil, that was a different story.
What the fuck?
He blurted out. Instead of trying to punch again, he decided to flare up and use my fire ability to try and burn her alive. He formed a blazing fireball in his hands, and I knew I had to try and move the body away from my protector child. Trying desperately to do anything, I rapidly twisted the body to the right and shot it towards a random wall. Then at that action, the body began to fill with fury from Satan's outrage. Not only that, but it also began to fill with joy as Abby was safe along with my family. Even though that was happening, he tried to backhand my human to turn himself around. This time, however, I was able to stop it physically. I could feel the sensations of fabric on my arm, along with the tension in my muscles. Slowly but surely, as Satan and Abby conversed, I was gaining control over the vessel and about to be unleashed.
What the hell is happening? Why can't I destroy you?
Because you don't understand what it means to be fused with another being. You are currently fused with a demon who cares about who you are trying to hurt. Not to mention the fact that he has 14 human years of built-up anger towards you. And he has the same amount of power as the leader of hell.
Right at her remark, I could feel the face shift into a worried expression. Just exactly what I hoped for. He was nervous, and I was thrilled.
Karma is a bitch,
Abby said with a sting. Just as she spoke, I finally gained control of my face and began to smile grimmingly, knowing I was able to finally give what the devil deserved. And so am I. Then within a second flat, I sent the right arm up to deliver an uppercut straight under the jaw. Stumbling back from the blow, I felt Satan push me out of control of the face again, and he was confused as ever, unknowing of how to function with another like this. After that, I went ballistic and began to make Satan's life truly a living hell. This fighting session of mine consisted of punches to the stomach and face, uncontrolled wing spasms that slammed us into walls of the arena, electricity shocks that I somehow randomly had, and best of all, was Satan screaming at the top of his lungs while the body spiraled out of control. From his emotions to mine, they mixed like a tornado while avoiding each other like negative magnets. This fuse was not ordained to be suitable for the two hosts. We were polar opposites and didn't agree on anything. This was just like the half and half that happens between Abby and I. And if I know this well enough, because of our disagreement and how much emotion is built up in the body, it will eventually boot me out of the fuse. So after dealing a good amount of pain to myself and Satan, I flew us up into the air and began to slam us down to the ground. Yet before I could land the crushing impact, I suddenly flung to the side towards Abby.
Darius!
She screamed. Before I could really tell what happened, I felt a pair of arms hook around me and stop the throwing momentum. Gazing around to see what happened, I saw a giant crater that formed from Satan slamming down into the dirt. I was unfused with the devil. I had my own body back, and Abby had a hold of me while she lowered us to the ground. As we landed, I quickly turned around to find that my protector child was grunting and holding her arms. Even though she was injured, she still used herself to catch me and bring me back to the floor of the arena. But what hurt me the most was knowing I was the one who caused her agony. "Oh my God, Abby, I'm so sorry that I hurt you," I said, grabbing a hold of her arms to see the wounds. There were nail punctures in her skin, extremely deep as well, yet her actions weren't inflicting I broke her bones. Yet still the feeling of sorrow filled my chest while Abby spoke again.
I don't care about that! You were under some weird mind control! You couldn't control it! I'm just glad that you're back!
Just at that statement, a random deep groan came across the way, and Abby immediately turned her head to it.
Looks like we're not done yet with the fight.
Looking in the same direction as her, I saw Satan finally beginning to get up and climb out of the crater. He was breathing heavily while displaying the pain in his ankle and arm. Not only that, but his nose was bleeding black blood. He ended up wiping it away with his sleeve, which was also slightly torn now from when I lashed out during the fuse. But still, his nose slowly dripped with blood while he stood with aggression. Just seeing the black liquid sliding down his face made me recall another dream I had a while back. And if this was honestly going in the same direction, I knew where this was going to lead.
You may have gotten a few punches, Darius, but mark my words, even though we have equal power, I am still the stronger one out of both of us,
he said. Says the one who couldn't control me when we were fused, I blurted back.
I will get what I want, and you will fall to me if it's the last thing I do.
Well, it will be! You still haven't mastered one thing, you selfish prick!
And what's that, you piece of shit?
He shouted, infuriated. I quickly turned my head to Abby and saw that she was staring straight at me, curious as to what I would do next. But before she could ask me, I turned my full body to grab a hold of her left arm and raised it up. Upon the contact, the snake and rose marking began to glow. Then shortly after, our bodies followed in the same illuminating fashion, shining brightly with red and magenta. A tingly sensation developing upon my skin as a ball of energy formed within my chest. A rush of wind circling around us as all these feelings increased. This was it. This was the form we had to take in order to kill Satan. Are you ready? I asked out loud to my protector child.
Yes!
She exclaimed, nodding her head ferociously.
Are you?
More than ever. Then just like in the dream, the illuminating light grew in intensity to the point it blinded our eyes. Regardless of that, I still felt the overcharge of energy enter my body while the adjustments took place. This time, however, I could feel every change come to life. The growth in height, the shifting and extending of the horns, the bulking of muscle, the increasing size of my wings, everything. But as we finished transforming, Abby and I stood tall, looking down at our enemy as he reacted to what he saw. Satan at this moment was cowering in fear, his eyes ready to pop out of his head, bottom lip quivering in fright, shaky breath, and wavering body limbs. His panic was clearly visible, and filled his body so much that he began to step back in disbelief, now realizing that the very thing he wanted to become would turn against him, and end his reign as being King of Hell. With a wide and devilish smile upon my face, we said one final phrase before we made any move towards him.
You didn't master the half and half.
At that, Satan tried to quickly levitate and fly out of the Nox arena, but instantly I moved my hand up and used my psychokinesis to grab him back slowly, making his fear stir and consume him until his throat was grasped within our own hand. Going so soon? I asked sarcastically.
We were just getting started.
Abby said shortly afterwards. Then, with no response from Satan, we agreeably drop-kicked him and made him break through another wall in the arena. We walked over quickly as the devil tried crawling out of his grave, but for fun, Abby used her arms to summon electricity, the lightning striking violently against our vessel for a moment to create the ultimate shock, and with one swift motion, she threw it at her target, making him scream and shout in horror. Before we could grab him, he tried to block us by summoning himself within a force field. Growing angry, I slammed my fist into the shield, watching it falter. Seeing the weakness of the protective dome, I extended my claws somehow and slashed through the force field. It ripped apart and failed instantly, scratching Satan in the process, leaving deep cuts on his right arm. Another guttural scream came from his mouth, filling us with joy and anger at the same time. He was officially taking damage, and we were dealing him back all of his torture that he placed on us. But we both knew that it was time to end it all and send him to his final resting place, away from all of us, and so he will never hurt another soul again. Living or not, he will no longer be punishing those who don't deserve it. Yet the question was how. Before we could decide how he would die, he created another knife and stabbed us in the leg. But yet, it only felt like a prick. A sliver jammed in our limb that needed to be pulled out. And using my power, I did. Then I flung the knife into Satan, knocking him down and stabbing him in his left shoulder where he stabbed me earlier, puncturing through his body and jabbing the knife into the ground. More yelling came from our enemy. He also tried to pull out the weapon from his shoulder, but he failed to do so. He was now pinned to the ground and unable to move. Now tell me, how would you wish to die? What is the one way we can kill you that you can't protect yourself from? I asked aggressively. Yet before I could say anything, my second pair of arms began to flame up, while Satan screamed for forgiveness.
Don't do this! I'm a very valuable man within this realm. I can change and be better like you. I can make a difference and change the error of my ways. Just let me live, please.
You should have thought about that before you decided to mistreat us for the past year.
My human exclaimed.
I know his weakness. He can't protect himself against fire. Darius, you burned him earlier with the chains and he didn't heal from that until you fused with him.
At that, Satan began to whimper and stutter as Abby revealed his secret. She was right. The devil was somehow not fireproof. He could burn, and that's why he was being weary with me after my firepower came in. So with another wicked smile on my face, I also ignited my arms into flames. Then together, Abby and I were able to create a dome-like fireball. A burning cage that could hold him inside until he was nothing but ash. Then once it was big enough and fully formed, we slammed it down to force Satan inside. Nothing but screams of agony echoed in the dome initially. However, we lifted the dome off the ground while Satan was trapped inside. Slowly his clothes and skin began to melt, but he still kept trying to escape. He tried to extinguish the fire with water, but yet again the fire was too hot that the liquid evaporated before even touching the barrier. Despite him being trapped, we both wanted him gone. So using all of our might, we intensified the flames and made him burn quicker until the screams became silent. His body burned to ash. When no viable remains were left of him, we put out our fire and let his ashes scatter in the wind, never to be revived or seen ever again. Satan was officially dead, and we were all free from him.
Dad! Abby!
We heard my son cry out. Turning around, he ran to us with his mother in his arms as fast as he could, as if he was coming to the rescue and presenting himself after a long battle. Yet the fact still remained that he was now the demon, and I couldn't do anything to change it. But before we could say anything, a sudden feeling of weariness and faintness took over our body, making our knees buckle, fall to the ground, and black out.
This has been Chapter 31, Burn in Hell, from the book, The Forbidden Truth. Tune in to the next video for Chapter 32. Thanks for listening.